invited to pull up a chair on Lisa Harper's Back Porch, where faith meets real life. Welcome to Back Porch Theology. Each episode helps you dive deeper into God's Word and discover that the gospel isn't just good news for eternity. It's great news for everyday life, because God is for you, and He's always been restoring our value and drawing us closer to Him. With honest conversations, a few laughs, and guests ranging from close friends to brilliant theologians, Back Porch Theology is thoughtful, meaningful, and never stuffy. So grab some coffee or sweet tea and join Lisa Harper on Back Porch Theology. Subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts.
One of these men is a highly respected New York attorney, Lucas A. Ferrara. The other is a self-proclaimed man of the people, known as Mert Roberts. Their aim is to discuss the hottest issues impacting our city, state, and nation. Fasten your seatbelt. Shake it off with Mert and Lucas. Live starts now on AM 970. The Answer.
Hey, Ryan, what's that song called?
So, Lucas, it is called Crazy Mind by Ned Studio to start out the show. And this is a pretty crazy tune in of itself, because I know we got to talk about some crazy things unfolding over the past week to start out tonight.
Oh, you want crazy, Pagano? I got crazy for you. On the evening of February 5, President Trump ignited yet another controversy. The man can't stop himself by posting a 62-second video to his Truth Social account. Now, created by an internet personality who I won't name, the video utilized high-fidelity AI-generated images to superimpose the faces of prominent American politicians onto the bodies of jungle animals. Oh boy. All set to the tune of The Lion Sleeps Tonight. That's that Lion King song. Now, while political satire and memes have been a Trump staple, this specific video, in my opinion, crossed an historical and ethical red line. It triggered an extremely strong reaction from people all across the political spectrum. Now, the video, Mert, used animal tropes to characterize Washington's most powerful figures. Of course, the Donald was the king of the jungle. Okay, all right, give him that. But political rivals were cast in various roles. Ready, Mert? President Joe Biden was seen as a baboon, while Kamala Harris was portrayed as a slow-moving tortoise. Chuck Schumer appeared as a zebra, and Hillary Clinton as a warthog. Okay, here's where it got problematic. The final seconds of the video featured the most controversial imagery. As the music reached its crescendo, Barack and Michelle Obama were shown as apes or chimpanzees swinging through the jungle. Now, before you react, Mert, for about 12 hours, that video remained live on the president's social media platform, got millions of views, and during this window, the silence from the White House was interpreted by many as an endorsement. The condemnation was swift, and unlike other controversies, the pushback was bipartisan. Tim Scott, the highest-ranking black Republican in the Senate, issued a stinging rebuke, saying, and here's the quote, Mert, "the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House," end quote. He added that he was praying that it was a fake. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And last but not least, Mert, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who, by the way, was depicted in the video as a meerkat, which is a member of the mongoose family, did not mince words. He labeled the president, quote, "a vile, unhinged, and malignant bottom feeder," end quote. What say you, Mert? Racist or no racist?
Well, I'm just going to be honest, because I don't think a lot of people are brave enough to admit this. I don't have this fear of racism that a lot of other people claim to have. Because, you speak to a lot of people. I haven't heard a lot of black people talking about this. The only black people I hear talking about this are ones in the media. And I have a lot of black friends, and none of them are talking about this video, because I'm just going to let anybody out there who might not realize this, but racism isn't very effective. It doesn't really help out white people. It doesn't strengthen you. It doesn't make you a more powerful race because you can discriminate against black people. It doesn't really do anything, because guess what happens? White people use it against other white people. So this old tactic of putting videos and stuff out there to try to send these messages and to make fun of black people, I just look at it like that. It was just a bad joke and people didn't find it funny. But everybody out there trying to make this some kind of big deal, I get it. You know, it's probably for the best, because you'll get a lot of brownie points for saying this stuff out loud. But people make bad jokes all the time. And when you make a bad joke, if you get a lot of attention from it, maybe that was the intended goal in the first place, to get a lot of attention. So giving these type of things a lot of attention could work against these people who want to come out here and act like they're so hurt and so offended. Because honestly, I don't think too many people are hurt by this type of stuff. Because if you hear the type of jokes that I hear, and you watch the type of shows that I watch, some of the movies that are actually very popular movies, and you see way worse images, you see way worse, you hear way worse, and everybody applauds these projects. I'm just going to say this. I'm not really moved by this whole controversy like a lot of people would probably expect me to come on here and say.
Wow.
It didn't really bother me.
I'm actually surprised by your reaction. I mean, do you agree with Carolyn Levitt? She's the White House press secretary, who dismissed all the reaction as quote-unquote fake outrage. She said it was a fake outrage from media obsessed with political correctness. I don't know. I don't know if that was an appropriate response, Mert.
I think it's calculated outrage. I don't think it's fake, because there are certain people in the media who have to say something. I'm not one of those people. Nobody's looking to me at this point in my life to be the leader of the black community. So there are some people out there who need to come out and condemn this. But I just think that for the people who might be inspired to start making jokes and stuff like this, I just want to send a message to them. Go ahead and try it, and you'll see other white people tear you down. It's not going to be black people that tear you down. It's going to be other white people who are going to pile on you, and they're going to slander your name, and they're going to make you the racist. It's not going to be black people who are going to make you the racist. It's going to be other white people who are going to come out and condemn you, not because they actually disagree with you, because it might be because they see an opportunity to become more, to become this.
How would you explain Tim Scott, who's a black Republican? He's a prominent black Republican, and he said it was the most racist thing he's ever seen. How would you explain that, Mert?
No. He's entitled to his opinion. I'm not saying black people can't have an opinion. I'm saying it would be white people who would be the ones who would turn you into a racist. A black man can't turn you into a racist. It's a white man who's going to do it. And they're going to profit off of it. And they're going to uplift their name off of it. See, that's how it works. That's why when white people are racist, it doesn't go far, because guess who's there to defend black people? White people who see an opportunity. See, I've shifted away from what the main argument is into the argument that I would like to put out there. Racism is going to be defeated by other white people. So you want to make these little jokes, Donald Trump or whoever is on the account of the White House, you're only giving some other white man an opportunity. And this is what Caroline Levitt might be referring to. Some white person who might joke like this behind the scenes, who might be a Democrat. And you're like, wait a minute, we make jokes like this behind the scenes all the time. But in front of the camera, you're acting like you're so offended by these jokes. I think that's what she was referring to, and it's very clear that this is what takes place.
Well, speaking to reporters on Air Force One, Trump claimed the next day, on February 6th, he hadn't watched the entire clip. His quote was, "I didn't see the whole thing," he claimed, asserting that he only saw the beginning before a staffer posted it. When asked if he made a mistake, he replied firmly, quote, "No, I didn't make a mistake." Now, I don't know if that was an appropriate response either. The video was just not appropriate, Mert. By the afternoon of February 6th, the video was deleted. An official statement was released, and it went like this, Mert. Quote, "White House staffer erroneously made the post," end quote. A move Democrats like Kamala quickly labeled a cover-up. I don't know if it was a cover-up, but it sure didn't look good. I mean, some staffer posts stuff on Trump's social media account without anybody checking or authorizing it. I doubt it. Embarrassing for Trump or not? Come on, get to the point, Bert. You don't think it was an embarrassment? You don't think it was an embarrassment? It was. Look, I don't like the Obamas, right? I have issues with the Obamas, but to portray them as apes or chimpanzees, that's offense. That has to be viewed as offensive. I mean, it's a trope that goes back centuries, where the people of color are equated with apes and chimpanzees. It's not a good analogy, not a good thing to do.
Well, I'm glad that you put it that way. It appears to be offensive because I'm not offended by it because I get why it's being done. It's being done to speak to a certain demographic. Is to speak to a fan base that this administration truly values and truly, appreciates. But I don't think that Donald Trump sat there and said, "Hey, make a video with the Obamas as apes." Some young intern or some young, somebody young trying to.
Some influencer created it. It wasn't created by the White House. That's not the point. He posted it on his social media account. He gave it his approval, his imprimatur. You don't put a racist trope like that on your social media. And by the way, it does reinforce racist underpinnings. Come on, Bert, you have to agree.
But the problem is, you do stuff like that because it gets you attention. It makes you look like you're controversial. It makes it look like you're willing to say stuff that nobody else is. And this works online. A lot of people have become famous by going against the grain. One person who's very famous for this is Howard Stern. Everybody loves him now, but you can go back in history and you can look at him donning blackface. And I'm a big fan of Howard Stern. But why am I able to overlook that? But I want to get offended because of this. No, I'm not going to get offended because I understand we live in America, and if you decide to become racist, it will hurt you in the end because the more you try to grow, you're going to have to start inviting other people into your stores, into your businesses to keep making money. There is nobody in this country who is rich selling just to white people.
Well, look,
you need to sell.
It is hurting Trump. I think you hit it right on the head. Because after the post, according to the surveys, Trump's disapproval rating climbed to 57%. 57% disapproval, Mert, with only 41% approving of his conduct. And analysts have speculated that this video would have a chilling effect, particularly among those that are independent or who live in suburban areas. So you may be hitting on something there. Now, Derek Johnson, who's the president of the NAACP, warned that the use of century-old racist tropes like what that was in this video, would be remembered by voters at the ballot box. So he doesn't agree with you. He thinks that people are going to remember this. The surveys are suggesting this disturbed people, and there may be consequences. That's my point. And by the way, according to a January 18th poll conducted this year, over 7,000 U.S. adults were asked this question, Mert. How big a problem is racism in our society today? What do you think most people said, Mert? Here are the options. Ready? A big problem, somewhat of a problem, not much of a problem, not a problem at all, or not sure, don't know. What do you think came in as number one?
Probably somewhere in the middle. So what was the middle option?
Not much of a problem is in the middle. Big problem, somewhat of a problem, not much of a problem, not a problem at all, not sure, don't know. Pick one. We're running out of time. Come on, bud.
Somewhat of a problem then.
Okay, almost 43% a big problem. So people perceive it as a big problem. Now, YouGov also provided some demographics. Around 62% of black adults said racism's a big problem, and that's up 56% from January of 2025. And among white adults, around 37% say it's a problem. And by party, Democrats and liberals tend to rate it much higher as a big problem, while Republicans and conservatives rate it lower. So I think this insensitivity was reinforced by posting something like that. And I don't think it helped the president at all. And by the way, if that weren't bad enough, one last little survey issue, Mert. When survey respondents were asked how much of Dr. King's dream of racial equality has been realized today, only 14% said all of it, 33% some of it, 26% said not much or none. So we still are lagging. People feel this racist underpinnings are impacting our country, and the government and our president puts up a trope like that. Come on, Mert, that doesn't help at all.
Well, you know what? I would like to hear what does Ryan think about this, because he's a white guy. So we're like,
Ryan Pagano is producing and engineering our show tonight. Ryan, what do you think? You've got an award-winning podcast. What is it called? It's called Pagano's Rituals?
Pag's Perspective, but I know that hasn't necessarily been a new thing, calling it Pagano's Rituals.
Rituals, yes, it's very satanic. What do the Satanists think?
Well, I mean, I feel like you were really hitting the nail on the head earlier that, maybe this is just an overblown issue. That being said, it's just so incredibly tone deaf to not only post this up, but then also keep it up for, 12 hours or something like that. Now, I'm looking at this with as much media literacy as humanly possible. And even if they wanted to go with the trope of, this was just a Lion King joke or something like that, it's still incredibly tone deaf. There's no question about that. Now, do I think it's overblown? Absolutely, because we have much greater things to worry about as a whole, especially when it comes to the Trump presidency. And with you mentioning the 57% disapproval rating, Lucas, I mean, having this also right after all the chaos going on in Minnesota with ICE and pulling them out and the 2 unfortunate civilians killed. I mean, it's just could not be any worse for the Trump administration right now. So, I mean, surely he had to have known about it.
Their timing certainly stinks.
Yeah, the timing is definitely not their friend here.
So he agrees with you, Mert. I mean, look, the depiction of political or racial others as subhuman remains a dangerous and widely condemned tool that, in my opinion, should never be utilized or encouraged and shouldn't be part of any political discourse. So the perception that Trump is furthering racial division rather than easing it, Mert, isn't just present, it's dominant. The country is ready.
Let me say this. When it becomes profitable to be racist, then I'll be concerned. It is currently not a money-making thing to be racist, so I am not worried about any racism because it doesn't make you money at this point. So until it becomes profitable to be racist, I won't be concerned about it. Now, I'll be on the lookout of disrespect,
I'm not
But
sure
racism,
what profit has to do with it. It's not acceptable discourse. In any event, what is acceptable, Mert, is this is Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas Live. We're truly honored to have you along with the ride. This is episode 84. Come on, let me hear an amen. Amen. With our studio audience live, this is Lucas Ferrara. We're ever mindful, without you or nothing. We've got some great guests in store for you, but before we unleash them, let me introduce the co-host, the Merdinator, the one and only Mert Roberts. Thank you, Mert. You heard from him. And of course, behind the scenes, engineering and producing the show, the one, the only Ryan Pagano, who has got a satanic ritual podcast. It's called Pags' Perspective, but I call it Pagano's Rituals, but it's called Pags' Perspective.
Well, the Satanists also call it that, too.
Okay, all right. But I think you should change it. Now, we have some special guests. We're going to be talking with Melissa Henson. She's a senior advisor for cultural and media for Concerned Women for America, and she's going to come on the show right after the break. And then we're going to hear from Carolyn Jane Knight, who's related to Jane Austen. So that'll be fun. So take a breather, go fill a coffee, don't touch that dial, because our next guest, Melissa Henson, Hollywood is indoctrinating our kids in all the wrong ways, and they need to be brained in big time. Following the 9/11 attacks, FDNY firefighter Daniel Foley assisted in the rescue and recovery efforts at Ground Zero. He couldn't have known that his heroism would later cost him his life. Daniel spent months at Ground Zero searching for victims, including his firefighter brother, Thomas Foley, who was killed in the attacks. Daniel's father also took part in the efforts at Ground Zero. He died years later from a rare 9/11-related leukemia. Daniel's death was also a direct result of 9/11-related cancer. He leaves behind his wife, Carrie, and their 5 children. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family's home. Every day we see the toll that 9/11 continues to take on heroes and their families. Your donation today can make a world of difference to a family like the Foleys. It can provide a sense of security and stability in the face of uncertainty. Donate $11 a month and consider amplifying your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Fueled by passion.
Handoff, Starling curls on the middle of the lane, puts it in and one. Pitch it into Freeman, his shot front rim around it.
We are upstate New York's team.
Pitch ahead, Starling, 3-ball, yes and one. Freeman on the breakout, splits 2 defenders, scores and one. Turnaround 10-footer, good. With the shot clock down at 5. JJ does his thing.
Listen all season long on your home for Syracuse basketball.
AM 970, The Answer.
Feel like you're trying to push a boulder uphill wearing skates? If you run or manage a local business today, you're challenged like never before. We get it, and we want to help. We're Salem Surround, and when it comes to marketing, consider us your personal move you forward company. In a recent study, we found that 53% of local businesses were classified as novices when it came to designing, implementing, and managing their marketing needs. And that's where Salem Surround truly shines. We're a full-service marketing agency that'll help you increase your customer base by designing incredibly effective plans to reach your consumers day, night, and everywhere they might be. Let us give you an absolutely free audit of your current marketing and what your competition is doing. Our digital sales and support teams are the best in the industry and deliver customized personal service that's second to none.
If you're a local business and ready for the next step, Google Salem Surround New York right now. Our experts are ready to help you take your marketing to the next level. Google Salem Surround New York today.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Hey, Ryan, what's that called? Is it like Dancing with the Stars or something? What is that?
Well, it's not Dancing with the Stars, but I am happy to tell you, Lucas, that this is perhaps the next best thing. It's called Kids Happy by Miramax Music, and I know you're playing this because I know the kids are happy right about now, but do you think their parents are feeling the same way?
Oh, I don't know. We're going to have to ask our next guest about that. Melissa Henson is the Senior Advisor for Culture and Media at Concerned Women for America, a national conservative policy organization where she leads research and advocacy on media-influenced, child-focused content and cultural trends. She's a frequent commentator on television, radio, and in print. She's known for her sharp analysis of how entertainment shapes public values and for championing greater transparency and accountability across the media landscape. Welcome to the program, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. One of the reasons I invited you, first of all, you're associated with a great organization, so congratulations on that. And you guys have a great website. And I came across a study that you had released recently where you say, or the organization says in the study, that over 41% of children's shows on Netflix contain LGBTQ content. Now, for listeners who haven't seen the report, can you give us, your take on this? What did your team find, and why should we be concerned?
Sure. Well, as you're probably aware, and your listeners are probably aware, this past fall there was really a firestorm of controversy, and it erupted when Elon Musk, sort of tweeted out that you should cancel Netflix. And there was a flurry of activity, people identifying and uploading onto the web video clips, examples of LGBTQ content. But, all that evidence was very anecdotal. And so we were trying to figure out just how common is this really? I mean, certainly the examples that were being shared and uploaded made it seem very pervasive, but how pervasive is it really? And so we tried to quantify it. And in fact, that's what we found is 41% of shows that carry the G rating. And most parents recognize that G rating is for general audience. That means that it's supposed to be acceptable for almost every member of the family. So 41% of G-rated series, 41% of TV Y7 rated series contained LGBTQ content, messages, themes, or characters. And that's a pretty striking number. You might expect to see that in an R-rated series and PG-13 rated series even, but I don't think most parents would expect to see that in programs that are rated appropriate for the very youngest members of the family.
For your study, how did you define LGBTQ content? And then I know Mert wants to ask you a question, but how did you define it so that our listeners understand the underpinnings?
Right. So we were looking for either explicit content, and that doesn't mean that it's sexually graphic. It just means that they are very forthright in saying, the character is gay or lesbian or trans or not non-binary. So they explicitly state it. Or we were looking for, in some cases, implied. So these might be non-primary characters or so-called queer-coded characters. And then the third category we were looking for was meta. So most often that would show up as gay families or participants in reality programming. And then the fourth category was none. So all the programs, and we looked at over about 326 Netflix series, both licensed and original content, and categorized the content in one of those four groups.
Wow. Mert, did you have a question or a comment?
Well, yeah, I wanted to get involved in this, but I'm going to change the direction I was going to go. So let me ask you this question. Who do you think is asking for this type of watchdog type of organization? And that's not to offend you or anything like that, but I'm saying what's the audience that's looking for this? Because I don't hear too many people complaining about it, but you might enlighten me on who's complaining about it. So what groups are we talking about who are asking for this type of watching and observing and determining what's too gay or what's too LGBTQ? Who's looking for this?
Well, I would argue with the premise. We are not stating it's too much, too gay or too LGBTQ. We're just stating that it's there. And I think that's certainly something that every parent has the right to know. These are sometimes very sensitive conversations, and it's up to each family to decide when it's an appropriate time to broach the subject with their child. That's the parent's decision. That's not Netflix's decision. And the issue is that this content is going on to children's programs, and they're not disclosing the presence of this content. So parents cannot make an informed decision because they are not aware that it's going on. And most parents would probably not assume that programs that are rated for the very youngest members of the family would be carrying this kind of content.
So is this a new phenomenon where parents don't watch what their kids are actually viewing? Or in the past, did parents used to pay attention to what the kids were watching? Because it sounds like this might be something new if all of a sudden parents need to be paying attention to the actual shows, and maybe in the past you didn't have to watch the cartoons that your kids were watching because you could just assume that there wasn't none of this stuff in there.
Well, I think that's it. And especially when you look at, we've been told for years now that we can trust in this rating system, that the rating system will tell us if there's anything that we need to be concerned about. And I think what this study shows is that you really can't trust in the rating system. And I think for a lot of parents, when you think about a show that's rated TVY or that's rated TVY7, the underlying assumption is that this is something that is going to be non-controversial, that's not going to be raising issues that may be sensitive or may be problematic for some families. You're going to assume that it's going to be fairly benign, and you're going to trust in that. And I think what we are learning is that you really can't trust in the rating system, and you can't trust that the people that are creating programs specifically for children are going to have the best interests of children at heart.
You know what? I really appreciate that answer, because a lot of people would take this and say, well, what's wrong with gay stuff being in the shows? But I think what your message is a very important one. It's, I deserve a right to know what the hell is in these shows. And if it's just, hey, this is a gay family, maybe I'm okay with that. But if it gets any further than that, I need to at least be aware so that if I don't want this in my household, I don't want it in my household, and I need to be able to do something about it. So I can respect that, because people do.
I think parents are not being allowed to make an informed decision. I think that's the bigger problem.
Right.
Parents have a right to know.
Yeah, and, when the rating system was introduced years and years and years ago, originally there was only an age-based rating, and the parents said, that doesn't tell us enough. And so they added these content descriptors that you see, sometimes an S or a D or a V. And some families are okay with a certain amount of violence, but they don't want their kids to see sex. And that's fine. That's up to each family. But with these programs that are rated for the very youngest members of the family, there is no content descriptor. So they're not warned about this kind of content. And there are going to be families out there that are going to say, it's fine. I don't have a problem with my child seeing this content. But that's the family's decision to make. That's not Netflix's decision to make.
They have a right to know, Mert, and I agree with Melissa 110%. We have to take a quick commercial break, but have no fear. Melissa Henson will be rejoining us after these commercial messages. For more info about Melissa and her organization, please visit concernedwomen.org. We'll also post that link on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Mert, Ryan, Melissa, and I certainly hope you'll stay tuned. Don't wander off. After the break, Melissa Henson's back with more sharp takes, media sanity checks, and maybe one or two things you'll want to argue about at dinner. Stay tuned. Melissa returns right after this.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Children who are going hungry is who we're helping with Food for the Poor by supplying them 2 meals per day for the coming year and clean drinking water for the foreseeable future of their life. 855-907-4673, and a $150 gift will help 2 of those children survive this next year without worry. But if you give it now, it will be doubled because of a match. 855-907-4673, and you can feed 4 kids for $150 right now. 855-907-4673.
This is Albert Mohler for townhall.com. Many of you have seen it. A jury in New York awarded a young woman $2 million over a transgender procedure as a minor. It's the first time a so-called detransitioner has won a case before a jury. She was 16 years old, and she had a double mastectomy, having been pressured by medical authorities. The New York Times ran a big story headline, "Woman wins a lawsuit over gender surgery as a minor." And then one day later, here's another headline, quote, "Doctors Group endorses restrictions on gender-related surgery for minors." That would be the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. Then just a day after that, a statement came from the American Medical Association saying that the best standard of care for minors is to delay these treatments. You know, the pro-LGBTQ movement is trying to say there's nothing big here, but this is a wave. We're seeing social ridiculousness now being called to account. May it continue. I'm Albert Mohler.
Hey, Scott Jennings here. I want to personally invite you to join me, along with my friend Mike Gallagher, for a powerful week on the Gulf of America cruise, November 14th through November 21st, 2026. That's this year. We'll cruise through crystal blue waters, visit incredible ports like Half Moon Cay and Cozumel, and enjoy the first-class hospitality of a luxury cruise ship. All week long, you'll have time with us. You'll do meet and greets, photo opportunities, Q&A sessions, and the chance to hear behind-the-scenes stories that you can't or won't hear on the air. You'll also be immersed in inspiring keynote speeches and in-depth sessions as we enjoy real connection designed to strengthen your resolve as we mark the 250th anniversary of our great nation. Don't miss this. Sign up today. Look forward to cruising the Caribbean with like-minded people who care deeply about our country. Reserve your cabin today. Text CRUISE to 94878, 94878, or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click the cruise banner to sign up today.
You're listening to AM 970, The Answer, your trusted conservative voice. Now, New York City has a new trusted conservative TV network, Salem News Channel, home to the brightest minds in conservative opinion. And you can watch Salem News Channel free over the air with an antenna. Watch Salem News Channel on channel 45.7. Learn more at snc.tv. That's snc.tv.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Oh, welcome back, my friends. We've been speaking with Melissa Henson, the Senior Advisor for Culture and Media at Concerned Women for America. It's a national conservative policy organization where she leads research and advocacy on media influence, child-focused content, and cultural trends. Melissa is a frequent commentator on television, radio, and in print, and she's known for her sharp analysis of how entertainment shapes public values and for championing greater transparency and accountability across the media landscape. For more information about Melissa and her organization, please visit concernedwomen.org. That's concernedwomen.org. We'll also post that link on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Did I get that right, Melissa?
You got it absolutely right. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So far, so good. We're having fun. I know that the Mertinator, Mert Roberts, has a follow-up or a comment. Go ahead, Mert.
Well, yeah, I'm just very curious. What if Netflix or any other entity that, you guys monitor would have pushed back and say, we feel like this could be, dangerous, because what if other organizations start to say, can you let us know when there'll be Latino or African American characters in the shows and stuff like that? And what if they try to lump you in with that type of negativity? What would be your response to that? Because they could say this is coming for not just LGBTQ, but any other group or any other, choices that, normally could be looked at as innocent, but, certain groups might have a problem with them. This is coming for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me finish your question.
Oh, you go.
Yeah. I would say that there is a qualitative difference in what you're talking about. So when you're talking about sexual preferences, it is inherently sexual. If you're talking about racial differences or ethnic differences, there's nothing inherently controversial, adult in its aspect. There's nothing inherently, something that you would need to shelter or protect children from. But I think civilizations going back centuries and centuries have recognized that there is a stage in human development, childhood, that needs to be protected in order for the child to develop healthfully and normally. So, for example, I was very troubled, in some of the reporting about the Epstein files recently. Somebody has disclosed that Prince Andrew apparently was taken to a brothel at age 11. An 11-year-old child was taken to a brothel, and that was his first sexual experience. And now look at how that has, allegedly played out in his adult life, engaging in very, very troubling adult sexual behavior. So you really need to protect the innocence of childhood. You need to protect them from untoward sexual influences, because it can really corrupt and distort their perceptions of human sexuality and can really dramatically, dangerously affect their normal sexual development as an adult.
So are you saying, Melissa, this is a form of indoctrination? Is this just another way of phrasing it?
I think that there are a number of factors that can come to bear. But certainly it is widely recognized that television is very influential as a form of sex education. And this has been recognized for decades. There have been studies that show that the more sexual content children watch on television, the more likely they are to become sexually active earlier in life, the more likely they are to have more sexual partners over the course of a lifetime, the more likely they are to engage in high-risk sexual behavior. Television has been described as a sexual super peer. So when you think about the influence that a child's peer group exerts on their decisions and their choices, television is that amplified, because what it does is it has a tendency to make certain kinds of behaviors seem normative. And when a child sees that, they want to be normal. They want to do what they think other kids are doing. So if they see kids experimenting with same-sex relationships in media, they are going to be more likely to experiment with same-sex relationships. If they see kids engaging in high-risk sexual behaviors, they are going to be more likely to believe that that is normal and expected of them.
So I guess that's indoctrination. Mert, what did you have a follow-up? Because I think I interrupted you.
Well, no. I was going to ask, maybe a variation. What about religion? Would that fit into a similar category? Would you like to know if these shows are talking about different religions, or do they have freedom to just go any direction? Like if it's
I guess, Melissa, are there categories that are generally agreed upon? Because we're sort of ignorant about this. Who determines what's acceptable and what's not? And how do we change this? Because obviously you think there should be an independent counsel to review this stuff, right? Isn't that your view?
Well, yeah, so it is a somewhat complicated question, because when you're talking about streaming services, right now there is no regulatory authority. If you were talking about broadcast television, they couldn't do anything that was considered indecent without facing the possibility of getting hit with fines. So, for example, this Super Bowl halftime show last Sunday, there were some members of Congress that were calling for indecency fines to be imposed because the song lyrics performed during the halftime show apparently were vulgarities or could be considered obscenities. If they had been said in English, they would have been actionable by the FCC. And so these members of Congress are saying it doesn't matter what language it's in. If it's a bad word, it's a bad word, and it should be treated the same. So, but streaming services are held to a different standard because they're not under FCC jurisdiction. That said, they do follow the rating system that was given the FCC stamp of approval. They use these same age-based ratings and content descriptors in some cases that the FCC authorized for broadcast and cable television back in 1996.
Well, let me say this.
There
let me
really
cut you off
is no
real quick.
regulatory authority. Yeah.
Let me cut you off. What about this concept of, broadcast television is free to everybody. If you have an antenna, you can get it. But with these services, if you pay for them, you get them. If you stop paying for them, you don't have to deal with any of that. So what is your response to that?
That's absolutely accurate. That's 100% correct, which is why the FCC has no authority over streaming services. But the reality is that the way people consume media has changed very dramatically. So now more than 50% of television viewing is done over a streaming service. There are more people streaming than watching broadcast and cable television combined. Only about 23%, I think, of television viewing is now over-the-air broadcast. More than 50% is streamed media. So I think we have to recognize the fact that the media landscape is changing, that the way we did things 30 years ago made sense 30 years ago and maybe don't make sense in 2026.
Is there like a streaming service that you could maybe help promote that does everything the way that you would like to do them? Like, is there an alternative? Do you preach for alternative?
Family friendly content channel?
No, not content, but a service that is strictly dedicated to doing things a certain way and not even going into areas where the content would be up for question. You can just trust it because they say if you pay for this, you don't have to worry about this. With Netflix, you're paying for something and you don't like it, but you're not discontinuing the subscription. You want to keep subscribing, but you don't like what they're doing. Isn't there a service? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a very fair question, and I'm glad you asked it. There are streaming services that have sort of explicitly stated that they want to be a family-friendly alternative. That they want to be a service that you can subscribe to and not have to worry about the possibility that your child is going to see something that they're not going to, that's not going to be developmentally appropriate for them. So some of the services that I would put in that category, there's Angel Studios, Up, Faith and Family, Dove has a streaming service. So there is sort of a growing recognition that this is a very desirable market to target. And now, a very profitable market.
You know what's going to happen, though, if we get some kind of government agency to start looking into this stuff. What's going to happen is those services, they're going to have some type of equal time type of things. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to have to represent gay families. So I could see that you could get what you want, and it would still lead to some of these things that you don't like becoming pushed into certain programs because we have to be fair to everybody. That's how these government things tend to work. You let the government in, now people have somebody that they can legitimately go after and sue and say, well, the government is sanctioning discrimination. They should allow gay families into this type of stuff.
And that's a very fair point. And I'm a big believer in the law of unintended consequences. So I'll get back to that in a little bit. But first, let me make this point. If you look at what Amazon Prime Video does, what they do is, I think, a very good example for other streaming services because they are very granular in their age recommendations. Netflix just says PG, TV-14, TVMA. These are kind of the big buckets that they use. And then they have the G and Y and Y7. So they have these very big buckets for only about a half a dozen or so age groupings. Amazon gets very granular with their age recommendations. One program might be 16 plus. Another program might be 8 plus. So they're very, very specific about age appropriateness. But in addition to being very specific about age appropriateness, they also warn you about all kinds of content that parents may have concerns about. They'll tell you if a gun is going to be shown on the screen. They will tell you if somebody's going to be smoking cigarettes on screen. They will tell you if somebody's going to be drinking alcohol on the screen. They're not saying it's bad. They're not proffering a value judgment about that content. They're just saying, here, you should be aware. And if this is a concern for you or for your family, then you know to avoid it. And I think that's a good model for all the streaming services. But getting back to the question of law of unintended consequences, we're sort of grappling with that right now. So, for example, a lot of the social media companies there's data that shows that they knew that what they were allowing on these social media platforms was harmful to children. But they had protection under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act was created in order to correct perverse incentives that came about as a result of prior laws. So in the early days of the Internet, websites that actively moderated content were often sued and found liable in civil courts. And websites that took a hands-off approach and said, "Hey, we're not going to interfere with what you want to post." They were not sued. They were not held liable. And so Section 230 was created in order to say, the websites that are in good faith practicing content moderation and trying to keep the bad stuff away from the kids, you can't sue them anymore. And now, Facebook and TikTok and Snapchat all enjoy Section 230 protection, even though they know that in many cases what they are doing is harming kids. So, as I say, I understand the concept of unintended consequences.
Right.
And that's not what we want. We want to make sure that parents are informed, that they can make the best choices for their kids, and that they are given ample opportunity to be aware of what their kids might be seeing and to decide for themselves whether or not it's suitable.
Melissa, would you believe it? We've run out of time. It went so quickly, your 2 segments. For more information about Melissa and her organization, please visit concernedwomen.org. Concernedwomen.org. We'll also post a link on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the program. It was a pleasure. Next up, Carolyn J. Knight. She's Jane's Austen's 5th great niece and the latest Austen descendant to grow up at the Charlton House. She'll be joining us after the break. She's the author of Jane and Me, My Austen Heritage. So it's imperative you come back after the news at the top of the hour, suffer through a few commercial messages, but once that's all done, Mert, Ryan, Carol, and Jay Knight, along with the rest of the AM 970 team, will be waiting right here for you. We know you want it. We know you do. Come back for Hour 2 of Shake It Off with Bert and Lucas Live. We have a lot more controversy waiting for you. Refill your tea. Make it quick, because Carol and Jay Knight will be joining us live from Australia right after the break.
The preceding hour of programming, sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.
You're invited to pull up a chair on Lisa Harper's Back Porch, where faith meets real life. Welcome to Back Porch Theology. Each episode helps you dive deeper into God's Word and discover that the gospel isn't just good news for eternity. It's great news for everyday life, because God is for you, and He's always been restoring our value and drawing us closer to Him. With honest conversations, a few laughs, and guests ranging from close friends to brilliant theologians, Back Porch Theology is thoughtful, meaningful, and never stuffy. So grab some coffee or sweet tea and join Lisa Harper on Back Porch Theology. Subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts.